Humanitarian efforts in Gaza. I'm now joined by Nabil Ali, Chief Operations Officer with International Development and Relief Foundation. Nabil, thank you for joining us. Your team is on the ground in Gaza as we speak, scrambling to help about 2 million people. What are they telling you?
Well, thanks for having us, Leena. The situation in Gaza right now is honestly catastrophic. We're looking at, 2 million people across the board that at some point here are going to be in need of humanitarian support services. We have nearly, 5,000 people that have lost their lives. Just last night, several hundreds have been killed at this hospital. So overall, the needs are dire. We have a team that's across the Gaza Strip, and amongst our team, we have staff that have had to leave the north and travel down south and are sleeping at centers that we established for learning are now homes for some of our staff members because they even have nowhere to go. So the situation on the ground is dire. We have local partners, for instance, that were printing using 3D printers to print things such as tourniquets to provide healthcare services to people. And even they have to now, reduce and have closed their operations because it's not safe for their staff to continue using the facilities to provide healthcare services. So the situation right now on the ground in Gaza is dire. People are in significant need, and healthcare workers and aid workers, their lives aren't being protected, and that's what needs to stop.
Right, and the UN saying Palestinians could be on the brink of starvation. There's a glimmer of hope today. As we heard, the U.S. president has brokered a deal to allow some aid to flow into Gaza now from the Egyptian border crossing, the Rafah crossing. What do you make of that?
Well, essentially, we know that humanitarian corridors need to be opened, right? It's not a question around if it will be, it's around when it's going to happen. So as an organization, we feel that this is something that's feasible. The challenge right now is the services and what we can do within Gaza is limited. So for instance, the photos you're seeing here, these are medical support services that we provided to a hospital in northern Gaza, right? And these services are a drop in the bucket in the grand scheme of things. But we know without these corridors being open, we can't get the aid to those who need it most. And doctors are having to make a very tough decision, right? Where a doctor has to either provide services to those that they can with the limited resources, or they either cannot support people that they need to. So triaging that isn't a decision that a doctor should have to make, and that's what's making it so challenging. So we're hopeful that, the humanitarian corridors will be open soon, and they need to be open soon, and we need global solidarity in that. We need our global leaders to step up and ensure that these humanitarian corridors are open so we can provide additional support services to people.
You just talked about some much needed medical support on the ground, doctors, surgeons, healthcare workers, all coming together to help these people as this humanitarian crisis intensifies. How then do you react to the fact that a hospital was bombed in Gaza today? And I want to just point out that we don't know, neither side has claimed responsibility at this point, but what do you make of that?
Well, let's talk about the facts, right? We do know that a hospital was bombed, right? We do know that several hundred people have lost their lives. What we do know is that hospitals already had very limited resources and support services that they could give people in Gaza. And now those very same hospitals could no longer provide additional support for people. What we also know is in a place like Gaza, that support services for people that were working in hospitals and people within schools has also been challenging, right? You look at, for instance, a school. Schools have now become shelters instead of it being a place of learning for children, right? Why are we in that scenario? Why are hospitals where people go to for safety and security being a place where people are no longer being able to get not only services, but are being bombed? And that's the challenge, right? And that's what, from a humanitarian perspective, from a humanity perspective, needs to change, right? We need to ensure that civilian lives are protected and that these people receive the services that they need. And the world, we can't sit around and watch this happen anymore. We need to ensure that we protect all of these individuals across the board in Gaza.
And speaking of humanity, for those who want to get involved and for those who want to help those caught in the middle of this Israel-Gaza war, Hamas war, I should say, what would you say to them? How can they help?
Well, there's a variety of ways that people can help, especially for us at IDRF. We as an organization are not only just focused on the humanitarian side, but we also focus on long-term development work. So for instance, right now, over the last few years, we as IDRF have built water wells, installed desalination plants, and we also have a water truck that provides services to people in Gaza. Our water truck, however, is only as effective as the fuel that we have to ensure that this water truck continues to provide services to people. So today, yes, we may be able to get water to those who need it. Our water wells may continue to be points where people can get access to water. However, that's because we, as an organization, have gotten the investments from our donors and from our supporters from a long-term perspective. So the point I'm making here is we need our donors, we need our partners and our supporters from across this country to support the work of organizations like IDRF, not just from a humanitarian perspective, so we can get your aid to those who need it most, but also from a long-term investment perspective so that we can ensure that Gaza is rebuilt. We know right now the aid we can get into Gaza is going to be limited until these corridors are open, but we don't want to be in a scenario as an organization where in, a few hours or in a day's notice or even a week's notice, we're coming to donors and we're asking for support. We want to be able to mobilize today. We want to be able to ensure that we're purchasing the food aid that we need, the medical support services that we need. We want to get access to the fuel. We want to open up water networks. We want to ensure that we have access to schools where children can get access to education. But we can only do that if we get support from our donors now. And if we're able to support ourselves now, it allows us to respond tomorrow. And that's what we're asking for. So what we're looking for is the people to donate. You can do so at idrf.ca or IDRF Canada through our social media handles on Instagram, or you can donate on there. But we're looking for donors to come together, people to come together in solidarity to provide services to people so that we can respond tomorrow once these corridors are open and once we can make a significant impact above and beyond the work that we're already doing.
Okay, Nabil Ali, Chief Operations Officer with International Development and Relief Foundation. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Leena.